Jim Harbaugh wanted to stay at Michigan, but now he's the coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. There's something happened here. One thing led to another, and now we're in a different direction. There's a book coming out called The Price: What It Takes to Win in College Football's Era of Chaos. And they're not just talking about NIL and the NCAA lawsuit. This has to do with Jim Harbaugh, the Michigan Wolverines, the Big Ten, and the NCAA. There are new details in this book. Now, we only have an excerpt, but in this excerpt, we have some really interesting things. I want to walk you through a couple of these things, Mac, and you tell me what you think. So we're going to start off here in the second paragraph. In the wake of the Connor Stallions sign stealing investigation, the NCAA enforcement had made yet another sweeping request for Harbaugh's school-issued and personal cell phone records dating back 18 months. Now, this was 6,199 emails plus texts. And their attorney, Jim Harbaugh's attorney, Tom Mars, said that this request was illegal under Michigan employment and privacy laws. But that's not the funny part. The funny part is that it wasn't just Harbaugh. The NCAA had demanded similar records from the entire coaching staff, only to drop the request. What do they call that in all the law shows?
Stupid? I don't know.
A fishing expedition.
Fishing expedition. Okay, my bad.
They were fishing for information and not understanding that they were violating privacy laws and civil rights and whatnot.
So did you guys have like hall monitors when you were a kid in high school? Yeah. Or you guys did? Okay. Yep. I don't think at the two schools when I was public school, I don't think that either of them had hall monitors. But I can just kind of imagine the NCAA as this hall monitor that's taking their job like way too seriously. Like, the hall monitor's walking around the hall and you see somebody going to the bathroom. He's like, "What you doing? What you going to the bathroom? All right, you can't do that. The bell hasn't rung. What are you doing, huh?" And he starts reporting into the principal and being all the goody two shoes and stuff like that. That's the NCAA right here, because the NCAA just tried to subpoena Harbaugh and a whole bunch of staffers to look through their emails, text messages, cell phone records, all that kind of stuff. But wait, the NCAA doesn't even have subpoena power, guys. They're not Congress. So what do they think they're doing? All right, move on.
It's like the NCAA said, "Hey, Harbaugh, we'd like to bring the hammer down on you, but we don't have any actual evidence. Could you give us some?"
Can you?
No. So moving down this article, you have Tom Mars, Harbaugh's lawyer, said, "I will tell you this. I told Harbaugh's agent, Don Yee, and Jim as clearly as I could more than once, more than twice, that in my opinion, if he stayed at Michigan, the COI, that's the Committee of Infractions, or Committee on Infractions, is going to punish Jim under the vicarious coach's responsibility legislation. And he's dealing with the COI that's clearly manifested bias against him. He's going to sit out 4 games, maybe 6, and whatever we do, the COI is going to find him guilty." So
doesn't matter. Literally, they couldn't do anything to stop them. And the COI, the Committee on Infractions, is basically okay. So they're everybody is saying the quiet part out loud. The NCAA is corrupt. That's what this is. The NCAA is upset at Harbaugh, probably for the revenue sharing for the players that he keeps advocating for. And so they're going to try and find him guilty for whatever they could possibly find him guilty for. This vicarious coach's responsibility legislation. What does that even mean? The NCAA can't legislate anything because, oh, that's right, they're not a legislative body. They have no jurisdiction because they're not a government entity. Seriously, they've got hall monitor syndrome written all over them right now.
So this is where, they have here on the other side, this is where Michigan tried to counteract what was going on with the NCAA, but we'll see here that it didn't quite work out. On the other side, by this time, Michigan had offered to make Harbaugh the highest paid coach in college football, a rollover 5-year contract north of $11 million per year, plus additional performance-based bonuses. I think they included that word north in there just so the Ohio State fans would pay attention. In exchange, university lawyers had pressed for termination language that would protect the school in the event of an unforeseen turn in the sign stealing investigation. So right there, Mac, you were talking before, either in a previous video or whatnot. But anyway, we've been talking about what the school needed to do. So what have you got there?
Yeah, so this is where I kind of deviate from the norm with Michigan fans. Because Isaiah Hull was talking about this. I was listening to his podcast on the whole situation earlier, and he was saying that Warde Manuel is not the scapegoat that a lot of Michigan fans want him to be. And I'm going to push back on that a little bit, but I'll kind of make his point, which is that Warde Manuel has to do what's right for Michigan. The regents have to do what's right for Michigan. If the NCAA did end up punishing Harbaugh for the sign stealing made up allegations, which it sounds like they were going to, it sounds like the lawyer was warning Harbaugh, look, they're going to punish you even if you hadn't done anything. They're going to find some way to do it. Mm-hmm. Then that leaves Michigan liable for a coach that could potentially be suspended for half or more of a season again. So they would be on the hook for his contract, which was expensive, whether or not he is actually there coaching the team. So they're going to pay for work that wasn't bringing them any value, whatever. I'm going to push back on that and say we wouldn't know the circumstances of the suspension. Would he be able to coach the team up until game day? And if so, how many games would he not be there for? Michigan's already proven that they can win big games without Harbaugh on the sideline. Not saying we want to make that a regular thing, just saying, they could have dealt with it. The other thing is too, look, if we know that the NCAA doesn't actually have any evidence of any wrongdoing, why doesn't Michigan come back and fight? Why leave Harbaugh out to dry if he is as valuable to the school as this contract says he is? Why wouldn't you spend a little bit of money to try and fight back against the NCAA? Because, oh, by the way, the rest of college football hates the NCAA. So it's not like you'd be alone in that fight, even though it doesn't sound like the Big Ten would have been any help. But I give Michigan a little bit of credit here because a lot of the information, Isaiah Hull was saying this, and I kind of had a feeling a lot of the information Michigan administrators were getting about what was going on with the NCAA, they were getting through the news media. So they were getting it literally at the same time we were. When we found out Harbaugh was suspended was when Harbaugh found out Harbaugh was suspended, basically. I mean, I think he got a call about it.
I think it was posted on Twitter.
Okay, yeah. But basically, the school was getting information at the same speed as we were getting information. So there wasn't anything they could do, which means the NCAA was already acting in the court of public opinion before the actual case could be legislated or could be tried, which is just stupid. We're talking about legal terms here. The NCAA is not a legal entity. They can't do crap.
Yeah.
But Michigan, this kind of says to me that Michigan was afraid of the NCAA. And I'm not sure why. Now, and I was going to say that, Virginia has been suing the NCAA and is winning. I think that's how that happened, was that they won or they settled. I can't remember. But in any case, legally speaking, the NCAA is not that scary. So why didn't Michigan go after them? Now, the other lawsuits, I think, happened after Harbaugh had already accepted the contract with the Chargers. So that's fine. I understand. But either way, what could the NCAA have done to Michigan that Michigan couldn't have then taken to court and beaten them on? So I understand Isaiah Hull's point completely that Warde Manuel and the regents have to do what's right for the school. But what could the NCAA have brought up against Michigan that Michigan couldn't have shot down hard in court?
Actually, that kind of makes me wonder about if when the NCAA came down on Ohio State for the players who sold memorabilia, and then they had wins vacated, and what those players did had nothing to do with the game. It wasn't in any way did it impact what happened on the field. But the NCAA came down and vacated or forced them to vacate wins or told them to. I don't know exactly how that works, if they can make that happen, but they did. They ended up vacating wins, and then I believe that's what led to Tressel's firing or dismissal, whatever it was. But is maybe the corruption, and I don't think you know the answer to this question. This is just sort of an hypothesis. Is the corruption of the NCAA so fierce that in this situation where they don't have any evidence that Harbaugh knew anything was happening, but the NCAA being corrupt as it is, the Big Ten and Warde Manuel are both like, and Tony Petitti, the president of the Big Ten, are all like, we better, you know, pretend, or we better, try to side with the NCAA, and maybe they'll go easy on us because they're going to fine us no matter what.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, I don't know what the NCAA can do against these schools with
Well,
and
apparently quite a lot. I mean, given what they've done to, uh, what they did to Ohio State, and frankly, what happened at Penn State was terrible, but it didn't have anything to do with the players at the time, and they got wins vacated.
well, that was they shouldn't have had wins vacated, and they shouldn't have had scholarship issues. Maybe there's an argument that the coach, I can't remember his name, Penn State's legendary coach,
Joe Paterno.
Joe Paterno. Maybe there's an argument that he should have gotten fired because he knew and didn't say anything, or however that happened. I can't remember, but in any case, my point is the NCAA is not a legal entity. How are the schools? What contract does the NCAA have with the schools, and vice versa, that forces the schools to have to follow the rules that the NCAA lays out? And maybe this is a part of the overall issue with the landscape of college football, is that the NCAA keeps trying to enforce rules. What are the rules? No one knows. So they're enforcing rules that they don't even have defined, using punishments that don't make sense. And so when you've got a corrupt case like this, for me, being the not legal scholar that I'm not, being the legal scholar that I'm not, why couldn't Michigan have gone to a court and told a judge, look, you've got an entity here that has already expressed openly their bias against Jim Harbaugh and what he stands for with player revenue sharing. You've got an entity that has enforced rules that they themselves admit don't make sense. How can we possibly trust any of the evidence that they say they have? Mind you, they didn't talk to Connor Stallions until, I believe, after the season was over. They didn't talk to the NCAA did not contact Connor Stallions until after Jim Harbaugh's suspension last season, after the Ohio State game, and I believe after the national championship. So they didn't care. The Big Ten didn't care. They didn't want to get evidence. They just wanted Harbaugh suspended. And Tony Petitti let it happen. And then they found out Chris Partridge told the players, hey, you're going to be brought in for questioning. Don't just pontificate. This is what happened with Chris Partridge. And Harbaugh was very outspoken about how much he didn't want Chris Partridge fired. Chris Partridge told the players, don't just start pontificating or speculating about what you think happened. Just, if you don't know, say you don't know. And that was enough for Chris Partridge to get accused of
destroying evidence.
Yeah. Just ridiculous.
So going down the article here, let's see. I think where the stumbling block came was trying to find the best way to handle any additional information from the second case, and we didn't know at the time of the contract signing. So that's more of, they didn't know what to do to protect the school because they weren't sure what was coming. But if we look down here, in the hours and days after the national championship game, Harbaugh had swatted away every last query about his future. I just want to enjoy this, he said. I hope you can give me that. Can you give a guy that? And yeah, that was somewhat of a, I don't want to say anticlimactic, because it was an awesome game, but there was sort of that feeling of, we didn't really get the chance to enjoy the national championship because of this nonsense that we're talking about.
I mean, I don't know. I guess I still enjoyed it.
Definitely we enjoyed it, but there was just so many outside forces coming in and saying, no, you got to remember, we have information on Connor Stallions. Trust us.
Yeah.
And they never did. They never came out with it. Which was frustrating, because in that letter from the Big Ten, the Big Ten said they've got this spreadsheet from Connor Stallions that details all the games that he bought tickets to. And then in the letter of the Big Ten said, and the NCAA tells us they have even more damning evidence. They haven't shown it to us, but they say they have it.
Yeah.
And it's this whole, trust us, bro. We have the information. But nothing's come of that. And so in the article here, then you've got Warde Manuel. So after everything happened, they were talking about the parade and all that, and the post national championship spectacle. That left Manuel to answer the question. The athletic director said he had only heard about 500 times riding alone in the back of a pickup truck. Take that for what it's worth on the parade route that day. I am working on getting this man a new contract. And I remember we heard that and we're like, okay, so they are trying to keep him, but something else was still happening. So the article goes on, or not the article. This is the excerpt from the book. During a 2-day getaway with his wife Sarah on Coronado Island off the coast of San Diego, Harbaugh unloaded to longtime friend to Todd Anson. He told Anson he wanted to remain at Michigan, but believed Manuel, no matter his public announcements or pronouncements, was not the advocate he needed in his corner. Particularly in front of the Board of Regents, he also raged against Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti, who before the 3-game Big Ten suspension had promised to meet Harbaugh in Ann Arbor and brief him on what the conference was doing, only to stand him up. So here we have 3 situations. Warde Manuel was not giving Harbaugh the support he needed. He was not giving Harbaugh the support he needed with the Regents, who were demanding answers and not necessarily they were more interested in protecting the school than protecting Harbaugh. And then Tony Petitti, who is this guy that he wasn't going to protect Harbaugh, he was coming after Harbaugh, and then wouldn't talk to Harbaugh, wouldn't answer interview requests, as you see right there. That to me is suspect. What do you think?
I think Petitti's just going to go whichever way he can to keep from upsetting the NCAA. I don't think Petitti is going to add anything to the conference. I don't think he's going to be that good of a commissioner. I can't remember the last commissioner's name, but he was a disaster except for the TV deal. And Petitti just doesn't want to ruin that. So whatever, Petitti is Petitti. But Warde Manuel, I mean, like I've said, I can at least understand his desire to protect Michigan. What I still cannot get past, though, is the fact that I don't understand the legal authority that the NCAA actually has to legally enforce punishments against member schools, especially when they don't actually have any evidence. And in fact, there's evidence to suggest not only the contrary, but also corruption on behalf of the NCAA.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they didn't talk to Connor Stallions until after the national championship. So was it a Connor
Petitti won't talk?
Petitti won't talk. The president of the NCAA already said Michigan won the Natty fair and square.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but it was all of the games that occurred before the national championship. No, not really, because it turns out they don't actually have any evidence to connect Harbaugh or any of the players to any of it anyway.
Right.
So where's the evidence, guys? Why are we doing this? And why? So, yes, if Warde Manuel and the Regents need to protect Michigan, that's fine. But if Harbaugh was worth this much to the school, if Harbaugh was worth the $11 million yearly, why not defend him in court? That's what I want to know.
Well, the excerpt goes on. The day after his outburst to Anson, Harbaugh had an initial interview with the Los Angeles Chargers. Afterward, his tone had softened, leaning toward taking the NFL job if offered. He dialed down the Manuel rhetoric, no longer interested in a potential legal battle and fighting people he later said were gunning for me.
Mm-hmm.
It suggested in attitude and tone that his days in Ann Arbor were numbered, and indeed they were. So Harbaugh truly believed that the NCAA was gunning for him, potentially Tony Petitti. And I guess that's where we have to kind of let Warde Manuel off the hook a little bit. Warde Manuel wasn't gunning for Harbaugh, but he wasn't protecting him against the people that were. Is that what you read here?
That's how I'm reading it. Maybe there's a chance that Warde Manuel was gunning for Harbaugh as much as everyone, or in a as much as everyone else was. Maybe not as much, but in his own kind of way. I don't know. It depends on where the money is, who's corrupt, who isn't, who does the revenue sharing affect? That's what I would want to know. And if I think that if it looks like there's a direct correlation between the revenue sharing and somebody not making as much in their paycheck, then I would assume that they probably had it out for Harbaugh as well. That's what I think.
Well, we'll learn more. So this is the excerpt that they have put out, and it's incredible. So you can only imagine what is in the rest of this book. We are not paid by this publisher or anything. This is not an endorsement, but that book comes out August 27th, and again, it's called "The Price: How to Win in College Football in this era of chaos." Let us know what you think about what we think, or what you think about all of this situation. Drop a comment, and don't forget to like and subscribe. We are on the way to 1,000 subscribers, and love every one of the subscribers we already have. So thank you very much, Mac. Take us out.
This is the Big Ten Team Rivalry Show. Sam Hartman's looking downfield for AJ.
Carter almost has a one-handed catch.
Almost.